Hello and welcome to episode 132 of the Brass Junkies. I'm your host, Andrew Hitz, and today I am joined by one of my favorite euphonium players in the world. I ranked them, my 50 favorites, and he did make the list barely, but he was number 47, but the good news is 47 is my lucky number. I don't know if you knew that. I'm actually being serious. But the 47th best euphonium player in the world, Lance LaDuke. Lance, how are you?
I'm honored to have moved up in the rankings.
He was similar to the college football, top 25. He was in the others also receiving votes. It's like it said like Lance LaDuke 3. Which meant you could kind of add it up and be like, oh, he's like 58th, so he's close. But he's moved up to 47th, so it's probably because I haven't heard him play in a while.
Fair. I actually have to play here coming up. It's a shock to everyone.
Absence makes the heart grow fonder.
Hopefully I survive this week. I have some kind of, I don't know, bronchitis, pneumonia, gout. Those are related, right?
Speaking of absence makes the heart grow fonder, I had lunch with Mr. Jose Sabaha last week. How about that? Yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah, he came to Shenandoah, and Mary Bowden, our amazing trumpet professor, had him into town for a couple of days. Lord knows I didn't invite him. And no, it was great. It was great. Jose and I were we were sharing stories for like all of lunch about things we did to Jeff. And Mary at some point was like, "You guys are awful."
Yeah.
And I looked at each other like, "Yep." Actually, one thing that we came up with during that lunch was that my good friend Mike Jacobitz, who is a Patreon patron, he actually grabbed some pickles and he brought them to Jeff at the New Jersey MEA. And Jose was like, he is going to give those to Jeff during our concert, and
nice.
And so Mike did chicken out because he's actually but they still got delivered to Jeff. It was just Jose that did the delivering on stage, and I think it was awkward and uncomfortable for everyone.
Jeff hates pickles more than we learned. Jeff hates pickles more than most anything.
We played a disturbingly aggressive game of would you rather blank or eat a pickle, and the one that I think summed it up really well. We did this for 20 minutes, and 45 seconds in, I was like, I cannot believe that. I don't remember which person said it, just said that, and we went on for another 19 minutes. The one that took the cake was when Lance LaDuke here, the 47th best euphonium player in the world, he said, would you rather eat a pickle or get a face tattoo of a pickle? And without hesitating, Jeff said that he'd rather get a face tattoo of a pickle that he would look at in the mirror for the rest of his life. I'm happy to report that the jar at some point was opened, and it had to have been Jose, put a pickle on Jeff's stand.
Nice.
Right next to his iPad.
Oh, man.
It's like $900 iPad Pro, and then there's like a pickle. So anyway, it was great. It was great to see Jose. So it really was. So he said he misses you. He didn't, but it was implied. So, So we had an awesome conversation with Phil Snedecor.
Really good.
Yeah.
I didn't realize that it was as long ago as it was that we spoke with him. It was 4 years ago.
Yeah, almost 3.5. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah,
I was shocked.
I would have said it was like 2 years ago. So
that's what I thought.
Yeah. Yep. And he's doing great things up at the Heart School. And we started talking about a lot of really interesting things in this. And I said that it was bordering on an episode of The Entrepreneurial Musician. And I am actually happy to report, Lance, you don't even know this. I
don't even know this.
Just today I flicked the switch on TEM has its own website. It is
you switch flicker.
TEM.FM. So that is the
TEM.FM.
TEM.FM is the Entrepreneurial Musician, which is the other podcast that I host, and is TEM Coaching, and which is like a big part of my business life now. It's finally got its own website. So that's
it's TEM. So TEM.FM. So it's the Entrepreneurial Musician for musicians. Is that what the F stands for?
That's good. We could maybe have a contest if people can figure out what FM means. So yeah. That means I could not meet the demands of the people who have been sitting on TEM.com for a while. So anyway, so go and check that out. And you're going to love this interview with Phil. It's really good stuff. And Jeff, I love you and I miss you. And I hope you enjoyed the pickles that Mike. And by the way, I want to offer, this is important.
It is important.
I want to offer anyone that goes to a Boston Brass concert and brings Jeff Connor a jar of pickles and takes a photo and sends it to us. You can hit us up on Instagram, send us a DM on Instagram or on Twitter, or post on our Facebook page, or email us through the Pedalo Media website, any of the above. We will give you a shout out on the air here. We're even thinking about doing some other things as well, which we haven't finalized. But please, if you're going to see Boston Brass, bring Jeff Connor a jar of pickles and take a photo with him, like looking unhappy and you looking very happy with a jar of pickles. And you don't even need to tell him who it's from. He knows. So
he knows.
Yep, he knows.
Hashtag pickles for Jeff.
Pickles for Jeff. Without further ado, let us get to our conversation with trumpet player extraordinaire Phil Snedecor. And today on the Brass Junkies, we are joined by a return guest. He is a trumpet player. We just love trumpets. He's a good trumpet player, and we love good trumpet players. And he's a good and outspoken trumpet player, and he checks all of the boxes for the kind of person that we would want to speak with late on a Sunday night, rather than going to bed and being rested to start the week. His name is Phil Snedecor. Phil, how are you?
Hi, guys. Thanks for having me back.
Absolutely.
Yeah, we're glad that the other people we wanted were not available. So,
and I'm glad you ran out of good guests, so you can get back around to me.
No, the problem is that you keep on doing interesting stuff. So that's that's the problem. So we need to have you back on. You've put out like multiple books. We also, the last time we talked to you, which was in November of 2016, you had just started your job at Hart. So tell us about that. I mean, you're still working there, so you haven't been fired. So that's spoiler alert. Yeah.
Right.
Although this doesn't air for another 48 hours, so I mean, we'll assume that tomorrow and we'll go fine. But anyway, yeah. Tell us about how Hart's going.
It's going great. I have a really fabulous studio of really great people and really great players, and one of my students, Brandon Dix, is I don't know if you've heard of him, but he's making all these videos, and he's writing books and doing all these things that I've encouraged, and he's just doing great, and all of them are really developing, and I enjoy going in every day and seeing what they're up to.
How many students do you have?
The studio caps out at 14 this year. I have 11. Because we're a little low, but it's actually a really alive, vibrant studio. So I like the fact that it's small, because we're not, teaching 50 trumpet people. We're growing a handful of very good ones. So.
Right. And now you're where Andrew and I are. So you're just on the backside of hearing a whole bunch of auditions.
Correct. We just had our final audition days last February, the last couple weeks ago.
And how did it go? How many people auditioned?
We had like 35 auditions.
Hold on. As we sit here, it is March 1st. Last February was otherwise known as yesterday.
It seems like, an eternity.
True.
I'm sorry, Phil. Answer the question. That was too snarky to pass up.
I can barely remember what I did yesterday. No, we had a great crop of people audition. We've got 6 spots. It'll be a challenge to to get the best 6 out of that, because we just, there are a lot of great players out there, and
out of 35,
we'd love to have everybody. So
well, and so do you pre-screen, or you hear it all 35?
We hear them all
live.
We hear them all, yeah. And some of them send videos, but most of them come live and do auditions. It's actually great to meet everybody. Most of the time, if they come for a live audition, I offer them a free trial lesson, and usually they take me up on it. And so they're interviewing me as much as I'm interviewing them. And I think that's important. Yeah. If you are looking for a teacher and if you're looking for a school of music and you have no idea who the teacher is and you don't care, you should be doing something else. Don't just, take whatever teacher they give you. That's the most important match you can have, is the student-teacher relationship. And you got to check that out.
Yeah.
Oh, so what are those lessons usually like for you?
I kind of give them my first lesson spiel about the way I teach and how I would approach their particular challenges. Like I can tell right away when they play for me what they're dealing with, what they're struggling with, whether it's articulation or sound or range or whatever. And okay, here's how we're going to approach this. Here's what we're going to do for you in the next 4 years, or in the graduate case, the next couple of years. And here's what I do to fix this. And we can fix what your issue is. You just got to kind of buy into how we're going to do it. And honestly, there have been a few students over the years that have been like, no, I'm going somewhere else, which is fine. Because if they don't like what I'm selling, they should go somewhere else. But most of them, I kind of have a different pedagogy than others. And I've been very successful with approaching things this way. So I started with Arnold Jacobs. I don't know if you guys know this. When I was just out of Eastman and after Dallas Brass, I went and kind of camped out on Arnold Jacobs' doorstep and studied with him. And he got me out of my funk. And I think I talked about it a little bit on the last show, but it was years before I took his pedagogy and really applied it to the trumpet in a way that was most efficient. And that's kind of what I figured out. And that's actually what I'm teaching now. And actually I've got a proposal for ITG to go do a seminar called the Jacobs Pedagogy Translated for Trumpet.
Huh.
That's cool.
That's super interesting. Tell us more about studying with Jacobs.
He was an incredibly positive guy. I think one of the things you can do for your students is not be kind of a downer. Like if they play something and it totally sucks, you have to be able to tell them that it's not up to par without tearing them down.
Yeah.
And he certainly had that. I can still hear his voice and his, deep, the seventh cranial nerve.
Whoa, Phil.
That type of thing. And I recorded most of my lessons and I transcribed them and I still have them. So I still go back to them. And he talked a lot about free air, no pressure, no back pressure. That was one of his big things. He would take his finger and stick it in his mouth and go, do that. And he said, that's a lot of effort and not much air. And then he'd kind of blow on the back of his hand and go, that's a lot of air and not much effort. And you want as much like number 2 as possible. And it took me a long time to figure out how to do this into the trumpet and make it sound as free blowing as he wanted, because I had to realize I'm not playing a tuba. I'm playing a trumpet. So I had to do that appropriately for the trumpet. And too many trumpet players, frankly, take his pedagogy and just take it verbatim and don't translate it for the trumpet. So that's what I figured out, and that's what I teach my students. And just today I had a trial lesson from a potential DMA candidate, and it was one of those pinball machine lessons where everything I said was like, oh my God, how have I not been doing this for the last 15 years? And
that was you saying this?
Most of the time it's me, but sometimes it's them. So it's satisfying to be able to, I really feel like I know how to teach now. Whereas 10, 15 years ago, I didn't know what the hell I was doing at all. I was just shooting in the dark half the time. No offense to my students 15 years ago, but sorry. But now I know what I'm doing.
Well, do you feel like, is it that you're more efficient at getting the result? I'm guessing that if you study with Jacobs, all that stuff went into your head and it was coming out through your teaching 15 years ago. But are you more efficient in communicating it now, maybe?
Yes, but I also know exactly how to rebalance a player based on his or her specific needs. Whereas before I would do the, sing the music and music first and all that stuff. And that was efficient to a point. But if you had somebody playing massively inefficiently, I really didn't know how to fix them. And now I do.
I see.
It's all, I tell people that when you go to an audition, people hear ease of playing overall.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, you can play as musically as anybody and play most of the right notes. But if you're struggling through it, they hear that and they're going to cut you right away.
Right.
As opposed to, we all know people who have gotten through round after round after round, not playing particularly musically, but easily and efficiently. And committees value that.
Yeah, because also, even if you can play everything correctly through each of the rounds, if you're really fighting it, that doesn't generally age very well.
Right.
So,
Exactly.
yeah, for sure. I mean, hit 40s, 50s, and beyond, and that is usually a losing game at that point. If you're,
I feel like I'm personally playing more efficiently at, 50 some odd years old, 50 years old than I did when I was 25.
Was it a light bulb, or is it been an evolution?
Both. I had a few light bulb moments, and then I evolved this pedagogy, and I really feel like I've honed in on something where if a student comes to me, I can go boom, boom, boom. This is what you need to do if you do X, Y, and Z. And people will come to me like, let's take my student Brandon. I'll use Brandon Dix as my example. He's the guy that's just playing fabulously. He had his master's recital a couple of weeks ago, played on a very high professional level. When he came to me, he had come from a small college for his bachelor's degree, and he thought, well, I just want to compose because I can't really play well enough. And after 6 months with me, he's like, wow, I'm going to play. I'm going to be a player. And that's satisfying to really, see somebody evolve into what they always wanted to be because I'm showing them the door.
Right.
It's fun.
Huh. I'd say.
there you go. Cool. Yeah, it's interesting how you were talking about how much more efficiently you're playing now than when you were 25. And when I first joined Boston Brass, I was 24, and the show was humorously long. I mean, it was the tune that we ended with for years and years and years, Caravan. Like when I first joined, they had like 2 songs after that before the encore. It was just like. And my face, I was just like, I was not efficient at all. It was like, it was a lot of muscling through it, not intentionally ever, but I didn't need to be that efficient just because I could do that to my face. And then I would wake up the next morning and my chops were like a little stiff. And then by like the next night in the next town, like my face was fine and I could just do it. There's no way that I could, I certainly couldn't do it now for 2 straight weeks like I did back then. There's no way. Like my face would have a revolt. And yet the good news is I don't need to do that. And I figured out pretty quickly, like watching, we were just talking about Rich Kelly before we started, and watching J.D. Shaw, and just, with how effortless it appeared over and over and over again. And then, so I was, learning by great example. Like, it's one thing to see teachers do it, and I saw Sam and I saw so many people do it right next to me. But then when it's colleagues doing it day in, day out right next to you, that's contagious. Yeah, that's really contagious. And so I'm the same way. I'm way more efficient than I was. That's only 20 years ago for me, the example you used. But, well, then I don't want to make you do math. But anyway. That's cool.
Well, you can get away a lot when you're young and enthusiastic, and when you're in your 20s, you can. What I tell students is there's a lot of different ways to play brass instruments, right? Mm-hmm. You can make it work any number of ways, and if you have the desire and the musical drive, you can play. We all know people that have played instruments that are like so hard to play, and somehow they sound amazing, right? Mm-hmm. And then you stick an amazing instrument in their hand and make them more efficient just by changing equipment.
Yep.
But then they can do even more. So what I'm trying to do is get them to approach the instrument in a much more efficient way, and they can do even more.
You talked about you gave an example about breath with one of the things you're translating from Arnold Jacobs' teaching to your own. Are there other what are the other areas that you're translating, for lack of a better way to describe it?
Well, again, most of Arnold Jacobs' teaching was, people misunderstood Arnold Jacobs' teaching because everybody says, that he was all about the air. And he did talk a lot about air, but in my lessons, he would talk a lot about lack of resistance, lack of fighting yourself, lack of back pressure. He would always say no back pressure. That was always one of his mantras. And again, to get that in the piccolo trumpet, to give you an extreme example, you can't blow the friggin' walls down if you're trying to make a nice, relaxed, non-back pressure sound in a piccolo trumpet. It's going to backfire on you, literally.
Right.
So it's like your head exploding, and you see, you see some people trying to play the piccolo trumpet or the trumpet or the French horn or some small hold instruments, I call them, in a way that makes them. You can use that in your show notes. Small hold instruments. And one of the light bulb moments for me, frankly, was watching Marty Hackelman play in the Washington Symphonic Brass, because I played for years with him.
Was he
and
good?
He's one. As I'd like to say, he does not suck. And so I watched him. I was like, wow, I'll never forget when I first heard him play, I thought he must be moving a lot of air. That's the first thing I thought. And then I talked to him and he's like, are you kidding me? He says, that's the last thing I do. He says, I blow efficiently. I blow evenly. I set myself up. He talked to me about this whole thing. And I was like, oh, that's what Arnold Jacobs meant. Yeah. It's not like you don't have to use air. You, of course, have to use air for the French horn and the trumpet and the whatever else you're playing. But you can't use as much air as Andy does on the tuba or as you do, Lance, on the euphonium. You just can't do it. We literally can't do that because our hole is too small. And so we have to blow. And you guys are making that face, but when I have
I know what you're talking about. It's a very serious conversation.
If I have a
hole size,
if I have a student look into the mouthpiece hole, I said, "This is what you're blowing into. Look at that hole," and they go, "Oh, I get it, right?"
And you're not working with what Hitz is working with. Just keep that in mind.
Right. So if you're playing a drinking game while you're listening to the Brass Junkies, hole is the word of choice.
Thank you. I'm sure you guys will have a lot of fun with this in post-production, but in any case, so my whole teaching philosophy is getting them playing efficiently and playing freely. Like it feels like you're blowing a lot of air, even when you're setting yourself up right. And so a lot of times too, they kind of play in the low F to low B flat, concert B flat area. They go, bah. Marty called it mooing into the horn. and they try to like blow the crap out of it so they can get the range. And when you're doing that, you're really fighting yourself. So I get them to, I do a thing called faux whistling. Right? You're not whistling, but you're actually making pitches.
Right.
And if you can set your face up to do that into the horn, you're playing more efficiently. Right? So I've got all kinds of little tricks that really I'm excited about just talking about it, because when you get a student to do this and they do it for the first time and they don't feel like their head's going to explode, it's an epiphanal moment. I should put a sign on my door saying no exploding heads.
No exploding heads. Hold on. No exploding heads.
So speaking of large and small holes, we would like to thank Parker Mouthpieces for providing the hosting for the Brass Junkies. Parker Mouthpieces offers fine, customizable hole sizes. Customizable component mouthpieces for horn, trombone, euphonium, and tuba. Euphonium and tuba, including the Andrew Hitz artist model tuba mouthpiece and the Lance LaDuke model euphonium mouthpiece. You can find out more at parkermouthpieces.com or follow them on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, and I'm also in the middle of that. Part of the laughing was not only that I said tuta, but then also which in Boston is someone with gas. But there was Sean Royce on Facebook said that he was using a log splitter, and that he was out in his yard using a log splitter, and that he was wait a minute, hold on. I think I can actually pull this up quickly. I want to actually read this because it's that good. I don't think Lance and I have had that many. Okay, here it is. Sean posted, "Today I rented a log splitter and split wood for about 5 hours. What better than to catch up on one of my favorite podcasts, The Brass Junkies? For those of you brass players not familiar with The Brass Junkies, be sure to check it out on iTunes. Fantastic interviews with amazing artists and Phil." I added that. Great stories, incredible insights, and so funny. I can't believe I didn't cut my hand off while splitting wood and listening to Wes Funderburk and Tom Gibson. They were hilarious. Thanks so much for all your work, Andrew and Lance. So we're tagged here. Keep them coming. And then someone who I won't name, he had a number of friends, though, that were similar. He wrote, the only comment was, "Log splitters are cool. The podcast guys are a little annoying. I like the content. I like the content. Sometimes they laugh too much." And then the first two reactions were both me and Lance, and we both gave him the ha-ha reaction to his comment, which was super meta, and that was awesome. So I thought of this guy in the middle of reading that, and I'm laughing, and then I was laughing about the laughing, and then annoying this guy who apparently keeps listening to us even though he hates us. So there you go. We like to book guests that are so interesting that people have to put up with us to listen to them. To which they're saying, "And Phil hasn't said anything in 4.5 minutes." So that's right. Yep, that's right. So
can I tell you the new logo that I just thought of? Parker Mouthpieces.
Please.
Parker Mouthpieces. What kind of hole can we design for you?
Parker.
This is free man. Michael's getting some free marketing advice here. There you go. Yeah, he knows how to do the whole, what is it, MCAD, the whole, computer thing. Yeah, it's all crazy. So, yeah, I bet he can design an infinite number of holes. So,
Michael, that's in the show notes. It's right there if you forget the wording.
I'm going to get so fired for this.
Let's recover here. So you put out a second tuba book, and it is spectacular. Tell us about that.
Thank you. Well, I love putting out tuba books because you guys are so starved for material that you'll just buy anything, and it's awesome. But I've gotten an amazing response to this, and I actually want to thank the tuba world for supporting this, because it's a huge reaction, and we've probably sold just as many volume 2s as we have volume 1s, and the volume 1's been out for a long time.
So that's great.
I appreciate all you guys that have bought it, and I think there's something to having a physical book too, as opposed to just downloading a PDF or getting a PDF. I know there's a lot of people that sell their books online, and you pay your $20 and get a PDF. But I think there's something to having it arrive in the mail, opening it up, cracking it open, being able to mark on it. I've really taken a lot of time to get a really cool cover and some good paper, and hopefully you feel like you're getting something that'll last for a while. And people have reacted well. There's some duets in it that work with the verse volume, and Mike Roylance, who I met at the Boston Symphony, has said that those are working really well with his students, and it's been great.
Yeah, they're great. I love a lot of them. That you dedicated a whole bunch of the tunes in this second book, and the Zirkel one is great. It's really good. I remember him. I remember before the book came out, I remember him complaining that he couldn't play it, which was funny. He was like, I've seen other people posting recordings of their song, but I can't play mine yet. I just remember that one. So which I wouldn't, if he wasn't one of the best tuba players in the world, I wouldn't be making fun of that post, but he is. And so therefore I am. So.
Well, and he did post his thing, and it was very good. And then for some reason it disappeared. So I have no idea. Dave, put your video back.
Yeah. It might have been me. I texted him and was like, "Are you sure you want to be putting that out there into the
world?" No, it sounded fabulous.
I know it did. So that's there's something, by the way, putting on my entrepreneurial musician hat here. There's something to be said for what you did, which is that you identified a market that was starved for good content, and you produced a great book, and then you produced a second great book. And this is a time when not a lot of people buy stuff, right? Because they get it for free, and yet you're selling a lot of copies because it's remarkable, and it's like, and it fills a need. I'm sure that you, if you write a trumpet book, it will sell also, and it will probably sell a lot because there are a lot more trumpet players. But the tuba world, when you can write something like you just did, it's going to sell itself because it's great. And you're right, we're starved. So there's a lesson in there for all of us.
Well, I've written 4 trumpet books, and they sell, but they have not sold as much as the tuba books.
I'm not surprised. You guys have a hell of a lot more literature. I mean, it's like, yeah, and I'm sure that your trumpet books, which I'm not familiar with, and I should buy them because I have lots of trumpet books. I'm sure that they're great, and I'm sure that they each have their own, niche within the, within the trumpet repertoire of books. But the tuba world, it's not that there's none, but there's a lot of, we play a lot of the same things over and over and over and over and over again. And there was nothing that went way down low melodically, but also technically like yours did. It was more like take things down an octave, which is still a great thing, but you wrote it and it's musical. And I make all my students buy them. So.
Cool. Thank you. You'll get your check in the mail.
There you go. You know what I'm going to do with that check? I'm going to turn it around. I'm just going to buy another Parker mouthpiece. Try a slightly different hole size and see if I can unlock the lack of back pressure thing there.
Can I briefly comment on the difference between marketing the first book and the second book?
Please.
Because I think it's indicative of how our lives have changed as consumers and as people that have things to sell.
Yeah, and then great. If it's not interesting, we're going to cut it. But yeah, please share it.
I'll trust that if it sucks, you'll just cut it, or you'll laugh a lot and piss that guy off from the chainsaw. So when the first book came out, it was kind of all word of mouth. These guys are like trying not to laugh into their microphone.
I've got like pneumonia, so I'm trying.
And so I would, have some people kind of talk it up, and I think I even took a print ad out in the Tuba Journal and things like that. And now, one of the reasons I dedicated some things to some certain players is because I knew they would go online and just record it, like they would video it.
Yep.
And so I think that it's really hard to market anything these days without video because of social media. Everything has to have a video to it.
Right.
So we had a whole series of people record their etudes, and it kind of caught on that way, and that's one of the ways I marketed it. For the second tuba book, it's for the second trumpet book, Lyrical Etudes Volume 2 for trumpet. I played all of them and put them online on my YouTube channel. For this new trumpet and piano book that I did called Music of New England Then and Now, in the studio I had 3 cameras going at all times. And I took the edited audio and I slapped it into the 3 cameras and made videos for each one, and then built a website around it and marketed that because everybody wants to see a video. And so then I would release, one every month or whatever. And people are like, wow, that's a really cool tune. Where do you get that? Well, you get it at my website right here. And so I think you almost have to have that these days. You have to have video going. Word of mouth is great, but people just consume video so much these days. It's just obscene. And if you don't have video, it's almost like it never even happened.
Mm-hmm. Let's get a little granular. What equipment did you use to capture the video, and then how did you edit it all together? What platforms or tools?
Right. So there were 2 of my own cameras, and actually there were 2 school cameras and one of my own. I actually own 3 pretty high quality cameras, but I was able to use the kind of the house cameras there. They gave me all the media in just either cards or USB things or hard drives. And I took them back to my computer on Final Cut Pro, and I edited them all together. I've edited all but 2 of my CDs that I've had over the years in Pro Tools. So not only did I take what Gabe Herman, my audio engineer, recorded in the studio and took it back in Pro Tools and edited it myself, but I edited all the video with it in Final Cut Pro. How did I learn that? I just taught myself. I mean, I just went on YouTube and I figured it out. And these days, it's not hard to do. You just have to have the desire. I tell all my students, if you want to learn this, you can learn it.
Yeah.
You don't
it's
have to
time consuming, but it's totally approachable.
Yeah. I mean, it's not rocket science. You can figure this stuff out. And I've learned a lot recently because I just played a trumpet concerto that Tony DiLorenzo wrote me in the Harrisburg Symphony. It was a 25-minute concerto. We premiered it in Harrisburg. I was able to get permission to video it for a special DVD that we're giving donors of $250 or more. It's on me to make this video doable. So I've got all these shots. There were 10 cameras on the orchestra.
Wow.
I've got 10 camera multi-clam clips. I had not worked in multicam clips of that size before.
I'm sorry, did you just say multi-clam? I think you said.
I did say that, but I meant multi-cam clips. But for me, it was multi-clam, and I had to edit all that out. But I don't know if you've ever seen one of these, but this is 2 terabytes right here.
Oh.
And it looks like a credit card.
Wow.
It's not cheap, but video goes through these things like they're donuts.
A solid state? Is it a solid state?
It's a solid state drive.
Wow.
And so
smaller than a credit card in terms of
it's smaller than a credit card. It's thinner. It's not as thin as a credit card, but it's almost. And SanDisk makes this, and it's incredible. I remember when you used to have to pay $1,000 for a terabyte. Now you can get 2 terabytes for $250 or whatever. It's amazing. But video eats this stuff like crazy, so you really need a lot of it. But anyway, I've learned stuff that I didn't even want to know about video just because I wanted to make it happen.
So how it's time consuming. I mean, that's the only thing I've experienced is that you have to make sure that you set aside some time. How long did it take you? I mean, are you in that process now with the 10
I've got the whole trumpet concerto edited and done, but part of the deal with Harrisburg Symphony is I'm going to do the other pieces on the concert too. So I've got Prokofiev Classical Symphony and La Mer and Bolero to do. And so I've got quite a bit of work to do to complete that. And then I'm going to order the DVD, get that out, get the packaging. You know the drill with putting something like that out there. It's going to be available only to donors because I wasn't able to get the money to have it publicly available.
And then did you edit the audio first and then fit the video to that? That's the plan?
Yes, absolutely. And there were 2 days. So there were Saturday night and Sunday. And so I had 2 audio things. And so then I've got 2 different video things. So I can sync it up perfectly as long as I know which day it's from. And then I've got the different shots so I can go anywhere really within the orchestra. The idea was to have something along the lines of the digital concert hall that Berlin Philharmonic puts out. Right. Now mine's not going to be that slick. But it's something nice to have, and it'll always be there. And Tony was really excited about it because he's got this premiere of this work that went really well, and now he's got a nice video to help market the piece, and other people will play it, hopefully. And it's a beautiful piece. It's called Ingenuity with an E, and it's there's 4 movements. There's the Rails of the Golden Spike. There's the Wings of Kitty Hawk. There's Tin Lizzy, which is about a Model T, and there's One Giant Leap. And it's brilliantly written. It's about American ingenuity in transportation. It's beautifully described musically. It's brilliant, and it was so much fun to play, and the orchestra really enjoyed it, and the audience loved it.
Fascinating. If you are young and you are listening to this, then if you take nothing else from this episode, it's that Phil did not know virtually anything about video editing, and he decided that he was going to learn about video editing, and then he went on YouTube, and then he not only researched, but he then researched and then did, and then I bet researched some more and then did some more, and now he is putting together an entire video of a professional orchestra's concert with 10 what was it, a 10 clam, that's like, that's
multi-clam clip.
Multi-clam.
Yeah, multi-clam. There you go. That's awesome. And also you can, if Phil had I'm gonna guess that if you had no interest at all in learning how to make video, that you at this point would have outsourced this, which would have cost you a bunch of money. But if you had no interest in it, then you're not going to learn it. But you did have an interest, so you learned it yourself, and now you have this amazing useful tool. It's good.
Well, the basic thing is I wouldn't have been able to afford to outsource this. It just wouldn't have happened.
Sure.
So
sure.
And let me say that the video thing is just like anything else in my life, and just like you gentlemen in your careers. I mean, we knew nothing about our instruments when we were starting.
Right.
We just figured it out. I figured out the trumpet. You guys figured out the tuba and the euphonium. Mm-hmm. We figured that out, and then we figured other stuff out that we wanted to do. And that's what life is figuring shit out that you want to do.
Yep.
And if you don't have the desire and the drive to do that, then okay, good luck. But it's all about how much you want to do something. That's the main commodity that I have that some people don't, is I just really want to do shit.
Right.
Period. I want it so bad that I'm going to do it if it kills me.
I will, though, say that I think it's easier to have the desire and the follow through to learn how to do shit when each of the three of us was at the age when we learned our instrument. I think it's more rare. It's not rare, but it's much more rare to learn how to do something like at the age that you learned how to make video, meaning not 18, But that's just ego. I mean, that's like, as long as you remain teachable and curious and all that, then you could have waited until you were 80 and learned how to video edit. I mean, you're only going to be more efficient with your learning now if you've been paying attention at all over these last few decades.
Well, that's right. And how many people do you know that kind of are kind of I'll say they're just kind of perpetually pissed off because things aren't going their way, because they just, I don't know how to do video. I can't do that.
Yep.
Blah, blah, blah. Nobody's calling me for this. And learning new stuff keeps me young, really. I mean, yes. I never want to stop learning new stuff.
Yep.
I want to always do new stuff. And if I don't do that, I'm just going to sit in some room somewhere and die.
Yes. Yeah. Music business coaching is a major source of income for me now, and I charge significantly more per hour than I do for teaching lessons, which I charge a lot for, but it's because that helps people to make way more money than they pay me. I never would have dreamed of that. 10 years ago, that wasn't on my radar whatsoever at all, and I was living a bunch of it as a small business owner. But yeah, it's like everything is all about changing and remaining curious, and anytime I'm in a rut, it's because I'm not remaining particularly curious at, overall. It doesn't mean like that day. It just, if I look back over the last 6 to 12 months at any time when I've kind of had a dip with my life satisfaction, not talking about serious. I mean, there's lots of things out of your control, like the health of the people you love or your own health. I'm not talking about any of that stuff. I'm just talking about professionally. It's because I am kind of in a rut, and the good news is that I can do something about that.
Right.
If I recognize.
The only person that can change that is you.
Amen. Right. And you, Phil, but you never do it. So I always have to do it for myself. So, hey, Lance, why don't you tell Phil, in case he wants to go back to school, about the Papert people?
Yeah, you know what I'm curious about is the Mary Papert School of Music at Duquesne University. That fine institution. Has been, thank you very much.
Except I'm laughing just to piss off Sean's friend.
That's right. And so the wonderful people at the Papert School of Music have put together a page devoted to the fans of the Brass Junkies. They have been a longtime sponsor of this show.
The whole page. It's not like it's like just that top half or the left side. The whole damn page.
The whole damn page. And so please click on that page and go find out about the goings-on that are going on there and the people you can study with and the ensembles that you can play with. And there's some fantastic, actually, Jen Montone is coming to do a master class, either is about to or just did. Michael Sachs, there's some great master classes about to happen and some very cool performances. So thank you very much to the Mary Papert School of Music for being a longtime sponsor, and very, very special thanks to Jim. Don't talk about my whole Nova for making it possible.
You're going to get so fired for that.
Don't talk. Wait.
What?
Don't talk about my whole Nova. That was a good one.
Yeah.
I hope they've heard the rest of this podcast before they hear that.
No, we're just going to lift that up.
Okay.
Some podcasts will take a sound clip and then put that at the very, very beginning, and sometimes that can be really effective
awesome.
rather. But yeah, that'd be funny if, especially the ones where Lance puts a super awkward pregnant pause in between, like Jim, and then you can just see his brain churning. So the best ones are always the ones that just roll right off of his tongue. But yeah, Jim has lots of nicknames.
He does. Bubble butt.
So I've got Bubble Butt is definitely the best one. And some people have actually called him Bubble Butt he got called Bubble Butt by someone in a masterclass, and he had some spicy words for us.
Actually, to say something nice about him, which I'm hesitant to do, but he's another guy who's endlessly curious, and
yes.
He does those overdubs, and he's figured out how to do those amazing arrangements of the John Williams music, and then how to record it and how to make it sound awesome and how to get it out there and disseminate it. He's got that whatever sickness is that we have.
And then that's opened up a whole nother performance avenue for him, because he goes and he plays those at conferences and stuff like that. And not that he doesn't enjoy doing, because he's never told me that he doesn't, but I'm assuming he doesn't dislike playing just a traditional recital at one of those things. But I do know that he gets crazy jazzed to be able to go and do that, the Star Wars stuff at a conference. Mm-hmm. And so, and which it's not like that was a thing, and then the person who did the thing stopped, and then the world was like, we need someone to step up, and Jim was like, I'll do it. No, Jim, he thought up the thing, he did the thing, he promotes the thing. It's his baby.
Well, and then usually when whatever thing you're talking about, let's say somebody did the thing, but by the time that's run its course, nobody really wants you to do that thing anymore. You have to morph it or create your own thing. And that's what I'm trying to convince my students. That's the future, is creating your own thing. Yes. What they're going to create in the next 10, 15 years, I haven't even thought of.
Yes.
It's a wild west right now.
Yep. Yeah, I agreed. And nobody wants to hear a really good impersonation of Phil Snedecor playing the trumpet. And if you can do a really good impersonation of Phil Snedecor playing the trumpet, then you are going to play the shit out of the trumpet. But if we want to hear that, we're just going to hire Phil Snedecor to actually do the Phil Snedecor trumpet thing.
And everybody's over that anyway.
Yeah,
so.
Well, it was unspoken. I was going to be polite. But but seriously, it's like, so yeah, everything is. The world more and more and more. I'm not trying to turn this into a TEM episode. The world more and more is rewarding people who draw their own map, whereas it wasn't that long ago that the world primarily rewarded people who were able to follow a pre-existing map a little better than everybody else. And the world still does value that, depending on the job and the timing and all of that stuff. But yeah, it's exciting now that someone like you and some time and some curiosity can just figure out how to professionally edit video, which you could not have done that 25 years ago. You would have had to have dropped like 6 figures in equipment and software, and it would have been prohibitive. Like the barrier to entry would have been such that you could not have done that. So,
and the learning curve would have been consuming, all encompassing.
Yeah, you would have had to have quit the trumpet. I mean, exactly. It would have had to have been your job. And now it's something that it's a whole lot of like on the weekends or in the evenings, like a whole lot of them. But you can learn how to do something like that just in your free time. So
I'm also really good at asking questions. Joe Bergstaller is the one that helped me kind of get into this. I knew he did Final Cut Pro. I was like, Joe, what do you use? And I just call people and ask them questions, including my students.
Yep.
If some of my students do something, with audio or video, I ask 1,000 questions. Right now, I'm looking at your microphone jury rig thing, and I'm like, is that an SM57 with rubber all around it? And is that what that is? And like, I'm just curious. That's the weirdest fucking thing I've ever seen, but it works. It's like something on a Mark Gould video, but it works.
You just hit on something really important, which is to ask questions. And the only reason to not ask a question I'm not talking about like at any given moment, because sometimes the timing isn't right or it's not polite or whatever. But the only reason to not ask questions is just ego, right? I think if I just don't want Phil to know that I don't already know this thing, because like I assume sometimes it's completely in my head that he thinks I already can do this thing, and if I admit that I can't, then I'm like it's like, well, first of all, Phil's not thinking about me as much as I'm thinking about me, just like I'm not thinking about Phil as much as Phil's thinking about Phil. You learn that as you get older, and then you ask people that can do what you want to do. And in general, especially if you ask the right way, when people ask me about stuff that I've figured out through asking others, I'm always really excited to be able to share it with them, Right. Yeah, you just get over that fear of which is just, it's always ego-based fear is what keeps me from moving forward whenever that happens. Screw you, ego.
Mm-hmm.
So, what?
Lance, you're so quiet this episode.
Sorry, I am fighting a respiratory thing.
Yeah,
and I'm trying. It's like if I start to laugh, then I'm gonna hack for 5 minutes.
Okay,
I'm trying.
I'll leave you alone over there.
No, you go ahead and keep.
You did really good on the whole Mary Poppins School of Music. You didn't cough.
I appreciate it. The Mary Poppins School of Music.
Mary Poppins. Screw that up.
No, it's Papper. But yeah. Oh,
yep,
good.
They teach you how to get the clams out of your videos. There it is. Lance is doing
all of it together.
Go ahead.
One of the things I think that is hard for us at our stage in life is to figure out we know more stuff than we realize, and so I'm reminded every day of like, oh, I had to kind of work through this. So today I did a job at St. Joseph's Cathedral, which is the big cathedral here, with this amazing organist, Ezekiel Mendez, who plays the organ like nobody's business. It's amazing. And at the end of the thing, he says, I appreciate how you play, but I really appreciate how you pay attention to what's needed and just do whatever is needed at the time. You know the liturgy, even though I'm not Catholic. I know, how to traverse the Catholic liturgy. And it's just from an experience standpoint. And I'm thinking I should really talk to my students about that, because if they go into a church that happens to be Catholic or whatever religion it is, it's good to kind of brush up on, hey, what's going on in this service? I can't just play the notes. I have to play it in an intelligent way that's going to add to this service rather than just, plowing through it. And so he kind of reminded me, oh yeah, I do that well, because I've been doing that for a lot of years, And so when we put together a career, we forget almost all these things that we know, because I'm not doing that a lot now. I'm not going to play church services a lot. I used to do that a ton. Today was kind of an anomaly. So it was fun, and it kind of reminded me, oh yeah, I do that pretty well. I'm going to go do a masterclass on that next week.
Mm-hmm. We have a studio class at CMU, and we have an accompanist comes in 6 times a semester, something like that. And she's coming in this Tuesday, and the whole time we're going to spend practicing starting, cueing the beginnings of notes, cueing cutoffs, having the pianist bow, and then I'm going to have them each learn to be a good page turner.
Good for you.
That's
hard too. That last thing's hard. Yeah,
and because and all you can do, like if you do your job perfectly, no one knows you're there.
Yep.
So all you can do is screw up. I mean,
right.
In order to, so it's like but that's the stuff you just forget. I mean, just nobody ever taught me that. I just sort of was thrown into it. But I feel like it's what you said. And I was like, oh, I guess they should know how to do this. And how are they going to know how to do this if we don't spend time talking about
before pieces? We forget that our students need practice and instruction into how to introduce a piece and say something semi-intelligent about it rather than just the composer's dates.
Right.
Yeah, I tell people, give me anything but when they were born and when they died. I don't care. Tell me what they have for breakfast the next morning, every morning. Something that I can come away with as an audience member that's going to make me interested in this person that wrote this piece of music.
Yeah. The humanity of it, yeah.
Yep. Yeah. The first time that Joe Bergstaller, who you just mentioned, and I played at the gig that you used to play all the time, Phil, when, obviously we'd never played together, and obviously he sounded amazing. That wasn't really that surprising, but it was funny because as soon as we were done with the rehearsal, we both kind of smiled as we walked up to each other, and I don't remember if there was him or me that said that first said, we were both thinking like, it is obvious that you have played in a lot of brass quintets, because it was just like, he is so easy to play with, and he just so naturally leads, and because I've done it for thousands of hours, I'm also just, I make... if there's a retard at the end of a piece, that can be led from two seats, right? That can be led from Joe's seat or Phil's seat in first trumpet or the tuba. It's like, so, and in different ways. But it was just very funny but you take that stuff for granted, where even if it's good players, they're not always great, like none of us were, by the way,
right.
Before we had the experience of it. I started playing quintets super young, and I could play all the notes, but I wasn't making the people around me any better by being super clear or breathing in a super clear manner, or just being predictable and musically or emotionally, but you learn how to. I'm still working on the being predictable emotionally, but actually there were times when I was very predictable emotionally, and that was actually always a problem. It was like, oh yeah, here it comes. But I've gotten better, right, Lance? I've gotten better.
Absolutely.
Baby steps. So speaking of baby steps, what Jens Lindemann still dealing with chop problems. He's is his hand recently. What did he do to his hand? He broke it, or he broke his wrist, or it was something like that's not funny, but we're still gonna laugh. It was like,
well, I heard that he was coming down the stairs with a cell phone in one hand and a computer in the other.
Right.
Probably trying to talk on the phone and send an email. And it ended badly.
And he was singing solfege too. Yeah.
He was probably reading through all the chop advice that you guys had given him.
Could be,
right?
Yeah.
Yep. There you go. The I don't know. I think that I mentioned at some point on the podcast, but it might have been when we were talking about Sam, but Sam's advice for Jens was that he just needed to warm up, like that was it. But he put it in a very, very, very strong Sammy from Miami, like scolding, like, I should kick your ass, but instead I'll just tell you to warm up kind of way. And Jens and I were laughing about that because that was one of the ones that his wife just handed him her phone and hit play. He listened to Sam's advice. So yeah, the night that Sam passed away, Jens texted me. He said, "I can never warm up ever again now." So, but anyway, so what, Phil? What is your advice for Jens other than maybe don't read emails while you're walking down the stairs?
Well, as I recall, in 2016, when you guys had me on the first time, my advice to him was just to use more pressure,
right?
To get his bell right on the wall and just press as hard as he could.
Right, I do remember
Probably
that.
not working out so well.
No, yeah.
So
when Phil said he didn't know how to teach 15 years ago, he meant he didn't know how to teach 4 years ago. So yeah.
Thankfully, I never gave that advice to my students.
Yeah.
I think he should come to Hart and take a lesson, and we'll see what we can do.
Would it be like a on the house lesson?
No. You'd have to charge him, wouldn't you?
It costs him in ways he can't even imagine. But
his dignity.
I will say that
Jens, hold on. Jens, the whole last 15 minutes we've been talking about, like, you just have to ask questions, you have to get by, past the ego-based fear thing. Right. You just need to go have a lesson with Phil. You need to just, you can keep it in the cone of silence, right? So other than, Phil probably secretly, Facebook living it, but, yeah. I'm sorry, you were going to say something serious, and I wasn't going to be able to say that after you said something serious, so I wanted to get that in. So
that's okay. We'll do it at the Spanish, the Mediterranean restaurant that I take all my masterclass guests before the masterclass, where and I buy them dinner, and then they come to a masterclass. So I'll give Jens the lesson there at the.
That's a good idea.
The Spanish tapas place.
It's just going to be like a psychological thing. It has nothing to do with the trumpet.
Yeah, it'll talk about how to go down the stairs with the phone in the left hand and the computer in the right hand, and playing the trumpet at the same time. I was going to say that for a number of years I taught at Banff in the summers when Jens had the brass festival, and that's where I was able to meet Brian Anthony and play with him and play with Marty and with so many great brass artists. Les Niche was the tuba guy there.
Oh yeah.
Elan. I'll have to edit this out. Elan Trudeau. Elan. What's his last name? He's an amazing trombone player
Yes, he is.
and conductor, and he's in. Anyway, you'll edit that out. But anyway,
no.
I heard Jens give a masterclass, and Jens he kind of is high energy and he's making all these jokes and everything. But I heard him give some really great information to a student one time who was performing on the piccolo trumpet, and that was one of my light bulbs, piccolo trumpet wise especially. And Jens really walks the walk. I mean, you see Jens play, you can see how easy it is for him. Like him and people like him, it's like, why is he just dancing on the ceiling and I'm down here, struggling on the floor? And it's because he plays so efficiently and has figured that out. And so Jens is one of the players.
Lionel Richie of trumpet for many years.
He's got it kind of down. And so I learned a lot by just observing him and then listening to what he had to say, and him and players like him, I think I have just not stopped learning from. And I think you can't stop learning from people like that. So thank you, Jens,
for saying nice things about Jens on here, but I guess we'll allow it.
Yeah, and that was definitely not the place. But remember before when I said the only reason to not ask a question because it's not right timing? Yeah, well, yeah. Anyway,
yeah, okay. I didn't learn that. You'll have to have me on again so I can get that right.
So Jens always, of course, reminds me of Canada, which is one of my favorite countries in the world to visit. But there was a
build a wall.
The Saturday Star, which I actually don't know which city that is. That is a newspaper from, but their newspaper yesterday had a giant headline. This was about coronavirus that said the Gretzky of viruses. And someone on Twitter said this is the only way Canadians can process any type of information, which was very, very, very funny. So.
My God.
Yep. So the current, who is it? Ovechkin just passed like 700 goals or something, and he's now still like 900 points behind Gretzky or something. Like, I mean, it's not. I mean, it's people in 100 years are gonna think it's like typos, like the guy's stats. Like it's just not. Yeah, not normal. So Wayne Gretzky's like the Marty Hackelman of hockey. There we go. All right. Lance, is there anything else that we need to ask Mr. Phil here? Doc, are you a doctor? You're not a doctor.
No, I'm a master.
Yeah.
Heart is actually it's nice because at my stage of the game, I'm not going to go get my doctorate somewhere. And
sure.
They're nice enough
Amen to that.
to take my consummate experience from doing things and calling it, the equivalent of a doctorate. And so it's rare these days that you get a school that's willing to do that, but I appreciate that. And I think it's important. Yeah. Lance, you're a master too, right?
Well, no, I'm only a bachelor, but I'm married.
You're a bachelor.
Yeah, I'm a bachelor too. So, yep. We both started master's degrees. I started too. Yeah, I dropped out of both of them.
I started too.
Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Well, so wait,
we could
hold
be
on.
Jeff Nelson. We could just be a pig farmer.
Yep, there is that. Between us, we've started 8 degrees and we've finished 4. So yeah, that's half. Yep.
2. We only finished 2. Huh?
There are pig farmers with doctorates, so they have more education than you sometimes.
That's true. Just not Jeff Nelson.
But stay in school and don't do drugs. All right, kids. So for those of you who are our Patreon patrons, we are about to talk to Mr. Doctor, whatever you'd like to call him, Phil Snedecor, for the Master Phil about for the bonus episode. He just had Mark Gould at his school for a masterclass, so that might come up. And we are gonna laugh too much as well. So, I'm just. But
at the Hart School, we have Chris Martin coming and Vinny DiMartino and Doug Prosser from the Rochester Philharmonic. That's all coming up this spring. So.
Wow.
Come see some master classes at the Hart School.
There you go. The guy from Coldplay?
Yeah. No, not that guy.
I didn't know he played trumpet. That's pretty cool. All right. He also has a kid named Apple, so that's also interesting. So, but that's neither here nor there. So, all right. Phil, thank you. This was awesome.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys.
I told you, Lance. I told you it was going to be good.
Who knew?
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, I surprised Lance again.
And that is gonna do it for another episode of The Brass Junkies. You've been listening to The Brass Junkies on the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network. If you would like to hear the bonus episode featuring today's guest, please visit patreon.com/thebrassjunkies to learn how you can support the show and instantly access all bonus materials, as well as gain access to a special patron-only Facebook group. The Brass Junkies is produced by the amazing, wonderful, and truly inspirational Will Houchin. The theme music was composed by Fernando Dados and performed by Andrew Hitz and Lance LaDuke. We are at Pray for Jens on Twitter and Instagram and have a Facebook page at facebook.com/prayforjens. You can find out more about the Brass Junkies and all the other Pedal Note Media podcasts at pedalnotemedia.com. This has been a presentation of the Pedal Note Media Podcast Network.